Welcome to Who is Barnum to You. I'm your host, Will Saris. The Barnum Museum is going through some changes as our longtime curator, Adrian St. Pierre, has decided to retire. And the Barnum Museum has hired a new curator, Dr. Daryn Reyman-Lock. And so we thought we would have her sit down and answer some questions and tell us a little bit about who she is. So Daryn, welcome to the show. Can you just tell us a little bit about your background?
Okay, well, I'm trained as an archaeologist. I did my Ph.D. in the University of Nottingham in England, and my research really focused on looking at space and how different societies constructed space to show their own identity, so social norms, political, economic situations. And then when I came back to the States, the architecture was much different here. So I started working with municipalities on placemaking and getting involved with individual owners that had historic buildings or historic structures that they wanted to, preserve and maintain. And then from there, I also kind of got involved with museums, doing a lot of curation and collections management. So my background's very dual-moded to historic preservation and museum consulting.
So that's a pretty eclectic background,
Yep.
From archaeology all the way through kind of doing curation at a museum.
Yeah.
What ended up bringing you to the Barnum Museum?
So when the job posted, it was kind of like a no-brainer to apply because it kind of fused everything that I did into one beautiful little package, which doesn't happen very often for me. So, of course, it's in a historic building that's getting restored and rehabilitated, which in and of itself, even if I'm just a spectator here, watching that happen is always a really cool process. But also their collection is just incredible with documents and ceramics to the archaeological specimens like Ippy. And then I met Phil, the centaur, and he just that was it. I was like, you're awesome. I have to come and work here.
He's a real centaur. We think, we're not sure, might be. Some people say that
well,
he's a real centaur.
Well, if you listen to what he says.
So if I ask you kind of the big question that we usually ask people that come on the show is, who is P.T. Barnum to you? What is kind of your background and where have you heard of this guy?
So that's a really hard question because, I can give you the simple answer in that I grew up in Fairfield County and I know him from being this larger than life man behind the curtain whose name is on a bunch of streets and a bunch of buildings and just kind of always been there in the background throughout my entire young life. But really my earliest memory of Barnum is the little animal cracker box, Barnum's animals, that I remember loving those. But he's always kind of been there in the background, being sort of like a nebulous figure that I haven't really had the opportunity to meet in any great depth. So I'm really looking forward to exploring his history and the way he engaged the public with spectacle and just his approach to things. I'm really curious.
That's great, because the next thing that I was going to ask was about kind of, has he taught you anything? And I don't know that you would say necessarily that you've had a lot of background with him, but ancillarily, you've probably come across him a lot.
Yeah. I don't know him personally, but
he died a little while ago.
He died a little while ago. But as I start to explore him, I imagine that I'm going to be surprised by exactly how human he is. He kind of comes across as this larger than life. He's the circus man. He comes across as this larger than life person that you sort of meet as a child. But as you get older, you start understanding, the man behind the curtain is someone very real. So I expect that I'm going to find a real human who had bouts of greatness and was fallible at times too, which all of us are. And I think I'm going to be really surprised by how relatable just the humanity of this legendary character is going to be.
Yeah, so I narrated the podcast that the Barnum Museum did, which was based off of the previous curator, Adrian St. Pierre's blog posts, following his travels in Europe during a specific couple of years. And it was amazing to realize and to just see him dealing with the same stuff that we all deal with. He was, dealing with his daughter who wasn't doing things that he wanted quite the same way that he wanted her to, and dealing with, people cheating him, and dealing with, trying to run a business across the ocean and do stuff here. He was completely human. And he's very interesting to to read, I think, because at least in those letters, you know, he's not writing in a way where he's writing for public consumption. He's just writing.
Yeah.
And it's like us writing today. I mean, he uses maybe some more arcane words, but he's actually extremely approachable in his just way of writing.
Right. And I think, at least in my research, that's something that I really love learning about historic figures, because identity is very fluid. So it changes depending on who you're with and what your situation is. And to see that in a man of such stature, particularly in the late 18th century or 19th century, is going to be just really interesting to see how he develops over time and see how he is situationally. What is he like in this context? Oh, but he's like this in a different context. See the family man versus the showman in that. And I think that's going to be just so much fun getting to know him on that more personal level. Yeah.
And so if I can switch a little bit.
Sure.
You're coming in as the new curator.
Yep.
Adrian's been the curator for a long time, and we are, sad to see her go, but excited to see you come in.
Yep.
I think I've asked her before, but I want to get your view on this. What does a curator do? What is kind of your approach now to what you're seeing in the museum and how what you're going to be doing with this collection?
So that's a great question, because the role of a curator is very multifaceted, right? So on the more basic level, you're a collections manager. You're there to make sure that you're protecting all of the things that support your mission, the physical objects. You're there to help the grander public understand the research knowledge that you're seeing from studying these objects and just getting to know the background history of the objects or background history of the people involved, reconstructing who those people are and really trying to understand them in a very real sort of sense. You're curating the experience. It's going back to the showman spectacle of it all. Is you're curating kind of everything from every sort of level. And you're also there to sort of not only protect the collection, but see it grow in a way that not only supports what you're trying to have people understand, but also support the mission of the organization.
And I'm sure too, from your background, because Adrian came just after the tornado, and you're coming now when they're really just beginning this embarkation into the re-envisioning.
Yeah.
And your background in designing spaces is going to become, I think, invaluable.
Well, it's not so much designing spaces, but understanding the politics of space. So I think for the immersive side of what this museum could and will be, that will be so amazing, because part of my background is what we call phenomenology. It's the experience of space, and it takes into account auditory situations. It takes into account how things travel, what you can see from vantage points, and I think that is going to be so much fun.
I'm sure.
So much fun.
I'm excited to see what happens. It's been a long journey for the museum.
Oh, very much so.
Seeing the concept art and things that they're, in some ways just brainstorming, but it has no real relation to, just basic relation to what's in the collection. And then being able to see now, hopefully as it goes forward, to see it actually start to come out and see, what is in this collection that can be used. I think it's going to just be fascinating and really an amazing opportunity for the museum. And so we're excited to have you come. I mean, this is going to be, I think, great. And we'll be seeing hopefully some videos from you too.
Hopefully.
As we ramp up and get things going, and you can introduce us to some of the crazy things in this collection, because there are some crazy things. I guess we can wrap up, but I just wanted to say thanks for coming. Thanks for
having
being
me.
the person here. And is there anything that you wanted to mention about your coming to the museum that excites you, that you're looking forward to, or anything like that you kind of want to leave us with?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, and this is kind of a silly thing, because I always try to get my kids involved in what I do and kind of love history and experience it. I think this will be the first time that I'm doing something that I can really pull them in and engage with, because they're still really young. So the idea of a circus and the shows and everything, I'm really looking forward to, curating experiences for people of all ages, certainly, but just seeing my kids' reaction to what mommy does and what the possibilities are here. I'm very excited about being part of this team and seeing where this will go.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that'll do it for Who Is Barnum to You. I'm Will Saris. If you want to know more about the Barnum Museum, please check out the website, barnum-museum.org. You can always watch more videos here on YouTube. See you soon.